Good morning, Steve Layton.
Good morning, Gail. How you doing?
I'm doing well. I hope you are.
I'm great, thanks.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
You were
Yeah.
recently named president of Polartec.
Yes.
I'd like for you to talk a little bit about Polartec and how you came to be in that role. At Clemson MBA, we're very excited of one of our alums taking that position.
Yeah, so Polartec is over a 100-year-old company. Milliken and Company acquired Polartec back in June. So Milliken itself is a 150-year-old plus company, headquartered here in the upstate. So I've been working with them for 7 years, and Polartec is a really unique acquisition for us in that space. Again, it's over 100 years old. We're the provider of premium fabrics that are used in outdoor sports apparel, military apparel. So it's a great fit within Milliken from a technology standpoint. But Polartec is also a really well-known brand. We have a really nice ingredient brand. So if you're looking at a Patagonia product, you kind of look for that label, and you can see the Polartec labels inside sort of those high-performing outdoor or athletic pieces. So it's been a really exciting integration first 3 months in, and we've had a lot of great surprises. We got under the hood. A lot of things are better than we expected. So there's just a lot of opportunities and a lot of excitement around the organization, both within the Polartec offices as well as within Milliken headquarters.
So you're 90 days in. You're still really looking at things, assessing things,
Right.
and really determining where you want to place your focus and so forth.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And one thing that Polartec brings is a lot of unique capabilities. But with that, we can touch a lot of places. So there was a big focus on diversification from my predecessor. And one of the things that I want to look at is, okay, we're in a lot of spaces now, but where can we really be truly great? And where do we kind of double down on where we want to go? Milliken's stability and financial stability helps us be able to make some of those choices and really go after some exciting markets. So we're in the process of figuring out all of that right now, but that is a tremendous opportunity for us as a group, and I think for Milliken in general.
What was it like for you to get a phone call and say, hey, we've got this new opportunity for you? Tell me about that.
Well, so I was leading another business unit within Milliken called Westex by Milliken, and that was the leading provider of flame-resistant fabrics used in the safety space. So I was actually in a trade show down in New Orleans when I got the call, saying, would you be interested? And by the way, we're going to move quickly. You would start next week. So
Wow.
it was a really neat opportunity. And again, Polartec's just one of those well-known ingredient brands. So when you look at what the markets that we're in, that was just really compelling for me to be involved with. So it was a no-brainer, and it's been a really exciting opportunity.
Yeah, so no-brainer, headquartered in Boston, I think?
Yeah, north of Boston and
Okay.
Andover. Yep.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, you've had an amazing career, Steve.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about you're a Clemson MBA graduate.
Sure.
You went to work at Milliken. Prior to that, you were with GE.
Yep.
And through the years, as you've changed positions and so forth, for our listeners who maybe want to know more about navigating a career and getting
Sure.
to the top,
Yeah.
what advice would you have for them?
My big advice is just go work. And so you can kind of track my work experience back to when I was 14 years old, working, taking down tents for parties and setting up tables and chairs with a company out in upstate New York. And I always just wanted to be active and do things and continue to climb. So if you look at my experience, even within college, they tended to be more blue collar type jobs. Between my junior and senior year of college, I was working in UPS. The year prior to that, I was actually assembling septic tanks on an assembly line. So, I kind of took a weird career progression, but I got to understand manufacturing and just kind of see, where the blood and sweat goes into making products. So the GE opportunity was an interesting one. I was on the financial management program coming out of college. That I had a lot of touch points with that. So I was able to traveled in Cleveland. I had an expat assignment in Budapest. I worked in Louisville, Kentucky, and then I worked up in Hendersonville, North Carolina. And honestly, GE was a fantastic place for me because they invested a lot in their employees, and I got a lot of quick training very, very quickly. So I was there for 7 years, moved 4 or 5 times, and really got to see a lot. we really started developing roots in here. I met my wife, while I was working at GE and started having kids. And we wanted to put down roots somewhere. And with GE, it was, you're gonna need to move and keep moving. And I think you and I started having those career conversations. I knew at some point they were going to stop asking. So I wanted to find an opportunity within a company that was based here in the Upstate, where I had a chance to really progress my career. And Milliken was a perfect fit. Not just being local, but really what the company stood for, as well as the opportunity that was in front of me. I joined Milliken as an analyst, so from one point of view, it may have looked like taking a step back, because I was a multi-site manufacturing finance leader with GE, with really a lot of potential runway for growth. And what Milliken offered, though, was a chance to get into strategy and development, which would have been a new field for me, and I had to kind of use those financial skills to be an analyst in there. That was 7 years ago, so going from an analyst into kind of now being the president of one of our subsidiaries was an interesting climb. And I think, your original question is, what advice do you give? And it's take the hardest job and just go work. Because if you're working and you're working in big groups and you're working well with, a wide group of functions, the opportunities are going to find you. And that's really what happened. So, I started off as an analyst on corporate development. One of the strategy projects that we worked on was in the flame-resistant textile space, which led to the largest acquisition at the time for Milliken, which was Westex by Milliken. So because I had done the research and that was some of the investment thesis, our division president at the time made the big push that that's the company that we should acquire because it filled a lot of needs that we had as a company. He gave me the opportunity to basically lead that integration. So I went from analyst to leading an integration of one of the largest acquisitions because I was comfortable in that space, knew the market, and that everything just sort of took off from there. It was one of those kind of big breaks for me, and it was a hard job that when you see those, you just have to take them. So I integrated the company and then kind of rose through the ranks in Westex. So when we acquired Polartec, they were looking for someone with business leadership experience as well as integration experience. So it really was kind of a perfect fit. So again, I think just take the hardest jobs, and when you're in those jobs, work well with people. Make it someone that people want to work with you and they want to promote you. And you're going to do that by working hard, but being a good person to work with too.
And I've seen your style a fair amount in the classroom as you are an adjunct professor with the Clemson MBA. I know that you like to kind of have fun with your students, and they enjoy that kind of playful. Do you bring some of that? I mean, how are you as a leader with your people? Is that there as well?
Well, I think it was telling from a couple customers a few years back when we took over, the Westex, and I took over the leadership of that group. They just walked over and said, "You guys are having fun," and we really did. We built a team that was centered around being a team player. I mean, so the Table Group is a consulting company, and I read this book called The Ideal Team Player, and it really kind of struck home with me. Yeah. So when you look at that and you talk about being humble, hungry, and smart, those are the type of people we look for and we try to recruit and promote. And within that just breeds a lot of fun because everyone's working together and everyone's driven, but everyone's doing it for the team as well. So all of that really comes together. So having a good time, and it's kind of the work hard, play hard. There really aren't people on my teams that don't love what they do. You can go back to Westex, people were passionate about safety. And so that way it's not work. People are excited to go travel, to meet with customers because we all have the same driving passion. The passions are different in Polartec, but they're still strong. Everyone's an enthusiast on the people that we work with, So you go to the Patagonias or do you go to some of the European customers like Nerona or Houdini, they're very passionate about sustainability as well as the outdoors. And that's something that we can really get behind and really connect on. So it's finding those unique things that you're driven about and kind of your purpose for doing things, not just, I'm here to collect a paycheck. It's, no, we really enjoy doing this. So having that fun is a big part of kind of the way that I like to lead and that leadership style.
I definitely see that. When we think of the business of innovation, and I look at the Milliken company and kind of for a long time, kind of the global leadership that occurred with Milliken and how they, really connected into Europe and got so many companies, coming here to have a footprint here and be suppliers and so forth. I mean, there's always been that thread of innovation at Milliken, and even that kind of ability to reinvent.
Right.
How do you think of innovation, and how does it affect what you're doing now?
Well, I think so. You made a great point on what Milliken has done as a company. When you look at the number of multi-million-dollar textile companies, a decade ago there was probably 8 to 10. And now really Milliken's the only one left, and the only way to do that was to continue to reinvent. So Milliken on the innovation side, from a product standpoint, is very strong. And so we have a lot of great people within the organization that know how to take chemistry, that know how to take material science, and find ways to add value or create new experiences. So that's nice. I don't have to focus on that. I don't have to be, a chemistry wizard or anything like that. My job is really to be innovative on the way that we do business, and look for paradigms that maybe existed, and find different ways on ultimately doing business. If you look at where things are going now, some of the biggest companies don't own any assets, right? They're just providing platforms for people to have access. You think of the Ubers or the Airbnbs. So that's the way that I'm trying to think, and just kind of reinvent, things that were a certain way in the past. Do they have to be that way?
Right.
One of the things, if you look at what we're doing now from a sales cycle in Polartec, we're actually trying to sell products that are going to go into winter 2021. So I feel like there's a better way that maybe we can find, to shorten that cycle. So hopefully there's innovative ways that we can get there. And I'm certainly not there yet, but I think, where my role is in this is to, number one, foster the product innovation side, but really bring new ideas to the business innovation side and change the way that we look at doing business with our customers.
When do you get your best ideas?
I think in groups. So actually the timing's perfect. We have a leadership meeting with my team up in Asheville this week, and we're going to get our best ideas collaborating with each other. So we're going to talk about, what have been our inhibitors to success. Number one, so how do we remove the inhibitors and how do we improve on that? And number two, what are our real enablers, right? So first of all, get rid of the things that are making it difficult to do business. And then the second one is how do we enable speed on improving the way we want to go to business, and really just leaning on people's experiences. And most of the people that are on my team have 25 plus years of experience in this field. So they bring a wealth of knowledge and experience, and challenging status quo with their knowledge, I think, is the way for us to really get some great ideas.
Yeah. So you're really still learning those individuals and their unique gifts and their history with the company.
Absolutely.
And all of that.
Yes.
So still kind of a little bit on the listening tour and...
Absolutely, but the listening never stops. I mean, I think you continue to lean on the experiences that people have. I think with me, it's been a fun, exciting career climb, but having that knowledge that I don't know everything yet, and some of the best things that some of the best leaders I've known, they were able to draw on past experiences, so I really don't have yet. I've done a lot of things and I've seen a lot of things, but I also know there's a lot I haven't seen and done yet. So I need to lean on my leadership team for their insights on that, and ultimately I'm going to have to make the call in certain areas, but it's never kind of done by myself. It's really a team effort in that.
What were those 3 H's again that you said?
Humble, hungry, and smart. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Humble,
Yeah.
hungry, and smart. Okay.
That's right.
And does that kind of stay with you sometimes?
It always does, especially when we're looking at new associates or we're thinking about how we want to run our team. And the smart is really just being people smart. And us, everyone, we kind of take the technical smart as a given. So these are really the differentiators. Do people know how to push the buttons and when to pull back, and getting the most out of their teams?
Now you have you teach at the Oxford MBA study abroad for Clemson MBA, and you've worked a great deal in Europe and maybe even Asia.
Yeah.
How did you? I mean, you played professional football in Europe. I mean, you've kind of just gotten this international sort of experience along your journey, but clearly it serves you well in this role. Can you talk more about that?
Yeah, I think with that, it's just being an open mind. It does involve a little bit of upfront research. I think that's huge. And when you go to a new country, it's worth it. Just doing even a quick Google search to figure out what are the do's and don'ts in a given region, and how do people do business. I feel like when I go to a different country, I'm sort of in their home court, and I need to be the one that adapts, and vice versa when they come here. We need to still be an American company and act that way. But obviously, if you're going into someone else's home court, you need to understand how to do things and how that works. But in general, I would just say that you look across the table, it's another person. So there may be kind of different rules and beliefs that may guide the principles, but at the end of the day, it's still about making a connection, and you're going to do that different ways. Sometimes it is about, sports, or sometimes it's really about the passion within the business. So it's really finding that connective thread is the way that we try to connect, because again, you're still just dealing with people across the table. So.
And for you, sometimes it's about humor.
Oh yeah. That tends to be a big part of what I do, and again, some cultures that is good. Other ones I know when to not really lean in on that. But
I think that's such a gift that you have, and I do think that helps people to kind of come together sometimes, and that levity that you bring.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, definitely see that.
Thank you.
If I were to ask you, how do you manage all of this right now? You have 2 small children, you do the teaching, you're taking this new company role on, and I know what a committed father you are. Tell me how you're managing everything right now.
Well, it starts with my wife. I mean, she's been tremendous through this whole experience, because early on it has been a lot of travel, whether I'm up in the Andover office, even an in-office day for me is out of town. So whether I'm in the Andover office, but there's been a lot of customer travel as well. And by the way, she's finishing up her PhD, so
Yes.
throw my travel plus everything that she's doing plus a PhD on top of it. She's truly an amazing woman, and has been that support to really let me focus on the job. And when I come home, it really is about the family. So I don't golf. The only kind of thing that I do on the side is I get up early and try to lift when I can, and try to get my workouts in. Otherwise, it's full family time, because that is most important. And I have a 5 and a 7-year-old, and to the extent that when I'm on the road, I can Skype with them while they're doing their homework. We try to do that, and hopefully that's something that they remember. Is like, okay, maybe Dad wasn't always here, but we could count on him to Skype at night if the time permitted it, if I'm not in Asia or something like that.
Sure.
So it really is, no matter how tired I am or jet lag, if my son comes to me with a football and says, hey, do you want to go play catch? We're going to be in that yard, and it doesn't matter. So it really is about putting them first when I am in town, but it really doesn't happen without my wife keeping things, stable at home. Again, a career person herself, getting a PhD, managing 2 kids. And by the way, we're getting work done at the house now, so just throw something else on.
Just throw something else in there.
Yeah.
So I heard you once lifted like a car.
Yeah.
How does that happen?
So I was in a gym in Spartanburg, and Kenny Blanton he's a great personal trainer, and he got into the strongman competitions and things like that. So they had the apparatus out, and I just said, well, let me give it a try. So maybe we can post that on, as a additional video. But,
an addendum, yes.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to know, in terms of your career so far, everything that you've accomplished career-wise, what do you feel like you're most proud of?
I think it's the progression and the speed at which that happened. And it was the way that it happened. I think at the end of the day, I got the opportunities because people saw that I would work hard, and it was actually never about personal gain. And I think people realized it. Some people kind of go into their career and say, I want to be this job and I want to get there as fast as I can. That really wasn't the case for me. Opportunities just came about. And I always prided myself on taking the hardest job that would be the most impactful. And in doing that, the opportunities just sort of found me from there. So I think the speed at which that happened was really interesting. Kind of in thinking back to the jobs that I had, moving tents around, putting septic tanks together, delivering packages for UPS. It's been kind of an interesting ride the whole way through, and you never. It's kind of a lot of people reflect on their careers and never think that it was just a strange progression, So, and I'm certainly not done. I don't plan to be done. I think it's a great opportunity. I think there's great years ahead for what we're trying to do at Polartec, and that's just going to breed more opportunities.
Absolutely.
The way that things are going. So.
I just hear, as you were reflecting back on all the things that you've done, it just sounds like all of them actually absolutely come together and inform the person you are now and how you lead everything, including the septic tanks, everything, as you've been out there doing. And I think that's always such a cool, I think it's Steve Jobs who says you can connect the dots looking back, really seeing, even playing in Europe, how
Right.
you've been comfortable and now even teaching and running your business, which is global.
Yeah, and that's a
So-
good point. The European thing was interesting because that was an opportunity that GE gave to me as a 22-year-old. So that expat assignment within GE. Prior to that, I'd never left the Eastern time zone. So
Yeah.
so that was just one that they said, look, you have this opportunity. Do you want it? And I said, let's go do it. And that could have gone terribly bad, but it ended up being a great opportunity for really me to develop as a person too.
Sure.
To just see a different culture, just understand that people are different, from some of their beliefs and things like that. But at the end of the day, people still want to, they still have their families, they still want to be successful. I think you look for those common threads when you're overseas.
Absolutely. So, and to that point, when you hire, are there some character, are there some things that you are always looking for?
I'm always looking for humble, hungry, and smart.
Okay, back to that, yes.
That goes back to that. And I think humility is the most important one, because if you're willing to sacrifice for the team, and you find joy in what you're doing, we can do a lot with that. There's technical capabilities that we can work on. There's classes if you need help on the sales process. There's a lot of tools out there for that. It's hard to teach someone how to be humble. So I really look for that piece kind of first and foremost. And in the interview process, you look for name and accomplishment, and you look if that person says I did this. It's really the team came together and did this. You just look for little clues like that. So I think those are the three main things. And then when you have that, international experience is a huge differentiator.
Sure.
So that's why I like being involved with the Oxford program. My wife really leads that and does a lot of that, and I chime in when I can and help with some of the courses and things like that. And that I think it's so important. If you look at people that have gone through that program, there's a handful of those people that I've given internships to and now have careers at Milliken. And that's never the promise, but you get familiar with people.
Sure.
And that international experience is a signal that you're willing to try something new and put yourself out of your comfort zone. So I always look for those as another signal as well. So I would say, the humble, hungry, and smart, and then international as another differentiator.
So tell me, in terms of what you, any failures or challenges or frustrations you might be willing to share with us, because obviously, if you're out there putting yourself out, you're gonna have failures. You're gonna have
Yeah, I mean, honestly, we fail every day to some extent, and the key there is just learning from that. I recall one time when I was early at GE. I missed my forecast by about 50%, and that was probably the biggest miss. I was this up and comer. Everyone was excited about me being on the team, and a year into it, it looks like we had fixed a lot of things, and I just flat out missed the forecast. And I felt just down the dumps. I felt like I was gonna puke. I just felt terrible.
Yeah.
And then I think you go back to what you learned as a football player, short memories. Learn from it, right? Don't make that same mistake again. And so I went back and analyzed and said, okay, well, there's 3 major things that I screwed up there. Okay, so how do I fix those 3 major things? And that got corrected. We didn't have an issue like that ever again. I've had some failures in Milliken, just from a negotiation standpoint. I probably gave up too much on a given deal, and just kind of, it's one of those you reflect back and what should I have done differently through that. I like to lean on my mentors, and I've had some fantastic mentors, both within GE, Milliken, and some that have that are owning their own companies. I lean on those folks a lot too, to say, look, I kind of ran into this. Did I do this right? What should I have thought of differently? I think just continuous self-reflection.
Yes.
And just learning and growing. And that's what we're doing. And I think as long as you don't make the same major mistake twice, then then you continue to learn and grow.
Do you think that makes you more compassionate with your own people, to watch them take risks and try things and know that occasionally they may have to regroup and it may not work?
Right. And I'd rather pull people back than push them, right?
Oh, sure.
So I like when people fail fast, I guess. So fail fast and bring it back, and we can talk and reflect. Now, obviously, if you make the same mistakes over and over, then those are different conversations. But I like people that are hungry, that want to keep trying and keep pushing. And it's better for me to say, okay, let's stop doing that, or here's a different way to think about that. So I think it does.
I do want to ask you, before I forget, what do you really love about your current role? What's the one thing that gets you excited?
I think the integrations are tricky, but they're really exciting because you get to learn about this entirely different culture, and then you have to find, what the common threads are within the culture that you're coming from. So that was a huge part of the fun with Westex is, finding that culture, becoming part of that culture. And even just what I'm wearing now, I would have probably, a month ago come in a 3-piece suit, right? But now I'm wearing, I'm representing the Polartec,
awesome.
All of our fabrics and things like that.
That must be fun.
So it is, yeah.
Fun stuff.
It definitely is. It's an active, cool outdoor brand. So I think that's most exciting is really understanding what makes a culture tick. And then educating both ways. I'm really the conduit between Milliken and Polartec. And there's other people kind of on the team. Our CFO for Polartec now, he actually he kind of did this with me with Westex as well. And he's a huge resource. And he is up in the office a lot of the times when I'm on the road traveling with customers. And he's been a huge conduit to help Milliken and Polartec really come together. I think that's the most fun at the end of the day. And then just learning a new customer base, different people, different cultures. People value different things that they do in different business. I'll go back to Westex. It was about safety and protecting employees. And here it's really about the environment, sustainability, and active outdoor. And these people are super passionate about what they do. And I love seeing people that care about something. The joke about me in the office is I don't have a dial, I just have an on and off switch. And I think, so I get super passionate in some areas, and then if I don't care about an area, I'll just sort of back off. And these are the types of people that I deal with now because they're extremely passionate about what they do, and that's exciting.
Wonderful. I did want to ask you, was there a childhood challenge that you overcame that would tell us something more about you?
No, I think with me, I was always, as a little kid, concerned about money, and I had no concept of it. It was always, I knew what I had in my piggy bank at all times, and I'd always be trying to earn money, and then if my parents would go, buy something for like my sister or something, I'd say, okay, well, now I've got to save over here because they're spending money that way. So that drove me into the workforce at an early age because I was always, and I didn't want to pull from my parents' funds. I wanted to, if I wanted to go to the movies, I'm going to pay for it myself. So I don't know what that stems, but I think that's an interesting little piece that drove me into the workforce. If I want to have fun, I've got to work hard. So my work hard, play hard mentality came at an early age.
That's interesting. And what with your own children, how will you sort of try to grow some of that with them? Yeah,
everything's earned with the kids. They know that. They know that if they want something, that there's something that they have to do to work towards that. So that's a lot of fun to see that. And they learn math because they know what nickels and dimes add up to. That's they can count by tens and fives pretty quickly at an early age because they're counting the money. So.
And I'm hearing a resourcefulness, a frugalness in there too, in what you're saying. Is that true?
I'm sure it's maddening too to my wife and things like that. But she's actually super good on that side too. So we, there is a bit of a frugalness and resourcefulness, and when we bring that into the workplace too.
And I think that resourcefulness, when you have been frugal and you have been resourceful, I think it does create a certain ability to create and innovate.
You have to,
You have to. So, So speak to how creative do you consider yourself to be?
I think on the spectrum, probably higher than average just because you have to be creative to get more out of what you have. If you have unlimited resources, then you can kind of get lazy in those areas. And look at Polartec as a company. It was private equity owned for 12 years. So that is a very, what they call is a scrappy group. They learned how to do a lot with not that much. So I think that's been kind of the fun thing is working within Polartec is we kind of bring that mentality. And I like that underdog mentality. I like kind of going and saying, I used to put septic tanks together. Like, we can figure this out, right? So there's a lot of that I think comes into play. Absolutely.
They probably feel really good about the acquisition and coming into the Milliken family. I would imagine if they've been looking at margins that closely all these years and under the VC, then you guys are taking them in and really, I'm sure you're going to do just amazing things with them. But becoming part of your family.
It is, and I think if you look at Milliken was definitely the best natural owner for Polartec, having a heritage in textiles, also a heritage in sustainability as well as innovation. Those are core values. And when you have those core values matching up, integrations tend to work out. There's nuances that, that may be a challenge, but at the end of the day, if the core, which you stand for, line up, which they do with Milliken and Polartec, then that makes the integration process that much smoother.
And there was a lot of consideration of that, of their values, and of
right, yeah,
a lot of that. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, Milliken would never make a move into an area that doesn't, sort of meet our value expectations. I mean, we're carrying the Milliken name with us in everything we do, and that's how we do business. We make sure that we think about the name that we're carrying. So between that, just the day-to-day business as well as how we look at acquisitions, there has to be some sort of lining up in terms of the ethics and the cultural pieces of it.
It's really gratifying for me to get to sit across from you, because I did see you when you were still in the program,
Yeah.
and you were looking and thinking and trying to determine kind of how you, and it's just to see you, step into this role and be enjoying it so much. It's really exciting to see that.
Well, I mean, you were a huge help in that whole process for me too, so thank you for that.
No, not at all. But I just, it's really gratifying to see you make that journey, and to your point, in a fairly short period of time.
Yeah.
So cool to see that. I do want to ask you to talk about yourself for just a moment. Something that you like about yourself, and maybe something that you don't like about yourself.
Yeah, I think the drive is something that I like. I mean, and that started at an early age with sports and managing sports school and job responsibilities and stuff like that. So I think the drive, and I think the other thing is short memories. So I tend to not dwell. I'm going to flip that around too, because there's probably things I should dwell on more. That would actually, but I think that sort of, I don't want to say Teflon mentality, but ultimately, you can't dwell too much. You have to just learn from your failures.
Yes.
I actually gave a poster to my son on his birthday that says, "You'll never lose. You either win or you learn." And that's kind of the way that I think about things, and hopefully that's the way that he and my daughter start to learn about things as well. Is like it's just a matter of, you could maybe have a failure, and it could be pretty impactful. You could lose your job. Things could happen. But the key is, can you learn from that and grow from that? So I think that's one thing, that mentality, and just having that is something that I think that I'm proud of.
Sure.
On the flip side, I think that there probably should be some things that bother me a little bit more than they actually do. And, sometimes that creates, I need to have a little bit more urgency in some areas than others. So I'm just working through how to piece where I should really care versus where I just need to let it go.
Sure.
Yep.
Absolutely. Most proud personal moment?
I don't know if I have a single one. I just even think last night, we were sitting out on the porch last night. My son was running routes, and I was just sitting on the porch and just throwing the ball. My daughter was hanging out. My daughter and my wife were just kind of sitting around the table. My son was running routes. We were passing the football. It was just a very fulfilling moment.
Yes.
And we just try to have as many of those as we can. So I look at the family and being able to grow a career, but also keep that piece strong. I think in general that's just satisfying, and it puts me in a very lucky position at the end of the day with the support group that I have, both from a professional standpoint as well as a family standpoint.
Definitely don't take those moments for granted, is what I'm hearing you say.
Right, yeah, really. Definitely.
I also wanted to ask you about, I know that you love learning. There's no doubt that you love learning.
Right.
What are you curious about now? What's got your attention?
Yeah, I think there's a big element from an environmental standpoint that I just didn't have my arms around prior to this role. So I really want to learn about different ways on being more sustainable, different ways of thinking about how we consume products and ultimately the life cycle of those products. Can we, I think that's one area that I never really put much thought into, but this has been an eye-opening experience with Polartec on, being sustainable and thinking about things in a different way. So that's an area that I really want to dig into and continue to learn about, and just learn about some of the impacts that we're having on the environment as a whole. And, are there better ways to do things that we're doing today?
It's interesting that you say that because I know that the blue zones around the world, those spots where people live longest, because certain things are in place environmentally and socially and so forth, they're getting ready to, a physician is coming here to meet with a group of leaders. It might be fun for you to be in that circle.
That would be interesting.
Because now they've studied those long enough that they know how to kind of replicate.
Okay.
And they just did that in Florida at a large hospital there and in the community there.
Wow. Yeah.
And so they're kind of bringing that research at Greenville, of course, which is such a cool city anyway.
Definitely,
so we'll have to talk more about that.
I would love to hear more about that.
Yeah.
That's just one of those areas that is just intriguing to me. And it's something that I never really thought of in a big way. It was always, part of the way that we wanted to do business in an ethical and sustainable manner. But I'm learning a lot more about that now because we're really in the outdoor space where people really care about it. And if someone is passionate about something, I want to take the time to learn about it myself. And I see that with a lot of my customers as well as the associates at Polartec.
It sounds like it's kind of opened up a whole new world in that regard to you.
Does.
So
definitely.
That'll be a lot of fun for you. How do you want to be remembered?
I want to, for me, that I love teaching, right? So take the travel, take the family. I still like to teach MBA courses when time permits. I want to be remembered by a lot of people as someone that helped them. So when I look at, the people that I hire or the people that I mentor, moving forward, I just want to remember as the guy that helped me and was willing to do things for others and do that the right way. So I think that's really what I strive. And you don't do that thinking that's how I want to be remembered. You just do it because it's the right thing to do. And I love teaching people and seeing them succeed. So that's probably how I think about that.
And your students absolutely love your class.
We try to make it fun and make sure that they understand the points. We hide some of the learnings in games, but at the end of the day, they get the concept, and it's a lot of fun for everyone.
And the cool thing is the best leaders are teachers too, and that's what you'll be doing in your role as president, I'm sure.
Right.
You'll be teaching and facilitating that learning as your team moves forward. So I see your teacher there as well.
Yeah, you never stop. You never stop learning, and you never stop teaching too. So
absolutely.
It's fun.
And then I think there might be some questions or a question that maybe I should have asked you, but I didn't.
Actually, you hit a bunch of them, to be honest. No, I think we had some really interesting conversations of the past and where we're going. Right now I'm just in learning mode, so I don't know the right questions, in regards to Polartec and where we want to take things. From a leadership standpoint, I think we hit on what I value as a leader, what I look for out of the people that I work with. So I think you did a pretty thorough job.
Yeah. Well, Polartec is such a very cool brand, and it's just exciting to see you step in. I think at Clemson MBA, we always are excited when our students go out and do amazing things, and you have definitely done that. And you've contributed back to the Clemson family through your teaching, and certainly Jane has done that as well. Both of you are graduates, so it was just especially rewarding to get to sit down with you today. So
it was great.
Thank you so much, Stephen. We'll be watching. We may want to talk with you again in the future soon.
Absolutely. Thank you, Gail.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.